Coca-Cola 600 that was. I mean, I don't know. Which one was better, this year or last year? Because this year sure tried very hard to be better than last year. What a race that was. But of course, the main story we're going to talk about is what took place between Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott. Now, these two have had a history for a while. Back in 2017, we know the deal with happened in Martinsville and Phoenix. Well, that rivalry has reignited. I shouldn't say reignited, it's exploded into high gear. Off of turn number 4, Denny Hamlin gets tight, washes up the racetrack, puts Chase Elliott in the wall. Elliott comes back down and just cleans out Denny Hamlin, right hooks him hard into the outside wall. Luckily, Denny Hamlin was okay. And after the race, or I should say after the crash, Denny Hamlin offered his thoughts on the situation.
I got right rear hooked in the middle straight away.
Did you think there was any kind of retaliation there, or what was the deal? What led to that?
Yeah, it's a tantrum, and he shouldn't be racing next week. Right rear hooks are absolutely unacceptable. I don't care. It's the same thing Bubba Wallace did with Kyle Larson. The exact same. He shouldn't be racing. It's a tantrum.
All right. I'm going to just say this right now. Anyone out there, first of all, let's get the BS out of the way. Chase Elliott dumped Denny Hamlin. I know some people are going to be like, oh, you know, it was Brad Keselowski that turned him. Or they're going to use the excuse of, oh, no, Chase said it was broken. His car was broken. Shut the hell up, okay? And actually be real for a second. Chase Elliott dumped Denny Hamlin. SMT data that Denny Hamlin provided showing that Chase Elliott flat out turned left like it was nothing. And if you look slow-mo, first of all, Keselowski did not touch Chase until after Chase makes contact with Hamlin. Once Chase makes contact with Hamlin, that is when Keselowski hits him, not prior. That's number one. Number two, if you look slow-mo, when Chase Elliott first bounces off the wall, yes, he turns left a little bit, but then he straightens his car back out before making a clear, hard left onto Hamlin's right rear fender. All I'm saying is that I am so looking forward to Hamlin's Actions Detrimental podcast. That is going to be #1 of the season. However, this is on NASCAR. This is less on Chase Elliott. I'm going to get to Chase in a minute, but this is on NASCAR. What I'm saying is this on NASCAR. Chase Elliott should be suspended and should be suspended right now. When we get to Gateway, it should be Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, somebody else should be driving that 9 car because we set a precedent last fall in Vegas. This is almost identical to Bubba and Larson. I shouldn't say almost. It is identical to Bubba and Larson. Same scenario how it started up. Larson washes up, puts Bubba in the wall, Bubba bounces off, right hooks Larson. Same situation here. Hamlin washes up, puts Elliott in the wall, Elliott bounces off, right hooks Hamlin. I mean, it's to a T almost. You cannot, and I would love to see, if you look on Twitter, the way people are trying to change the situation, how Hamlin is, or how Hamlin and Elliott's incident is different from Bubba and Larson's. It's not. They're the same. And NASCAR set a precedent when they suspended Bubba for one race for what he did in Las Vegas. And I, for one, was for that. I feel like Bubba should rightfully be suspended. However, the same should be applied to Chase Elliott. I don't care if Chase Elliott's the most popular driver. What he did was dangerous and flat out stupid. You do not right hook a guy, especially at a fast track like Charlotte. Again, we'll go back at Vegas. Right hooks at what, 160, 70, 80 miles an hour? No, you don't do that stuff. That is incredibly dangerous. Same thing applies here. When you're going, especially at a fast part like Charlotte on the front stretch, that is incredibly dangerous and irresponsible. And if NASCAR better be consistent about this, because they already set a precedent last fall when they suspended Bubba Wallace, the same thing should be applied to Chase Elliott. And as anything other than that, I, for one, would be very disappointed. I don't want to see no point penalty or major fine. No, suspension. No 25 points. No $100,000 fine. No. You set a precedent last fall. The same should be applied. There is nothing different from this incident compared to last fall's incident in Vegas. They are exactly the same and both should result in the same punishment. Bubba got suspended for that and Elliott should be suspended for that. It was absolutely ridiculous and I cannot believe that Chase would do something like that. I just wasn't expecting it. But he should definitely be suspended. And anybody that tries to defend Chase for his actions, and I'm sorry to say this, I might be blunt, maybe too harsh in saying this, but if anyone is trying to defend Chase, remember, I'm a big Bubba Wallace fan, but I called out Bubba for what he did in Vegas. And with that, I thought that was absolutely stupid and wrong, and he should be suspended for this one. I'm going to say the same thing in this moment right now. Anybody that's trying to defend Chase Elliott, for that, you need to get your head out of your ass and be real. Because what Chase did is completely unnecessary and stupid. Anyways, I digress. Outside of that, the race was very, very, very entertaining. It wasn't until maybe halfway into the race did you really get an idea of who the front runners could be. But majority of the time, especially in the early part, it seemed as though it'd be the Toyotas like Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr. Those guys are up towards the front. But later on, you start to see the Fords emerge like Brad Keselowski and especially Ryan Blaney. But overall, this entire race, and part of this you have to credit Mother Nature, the fact that we had zero practice of qualifying, was the amount of comers and goers we saw. I mean, every part you had drivers moving up, going back, new contenders up and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, we had 31 lead changes between 13 different winners. Absolutely incredible the amount of parity that we saw in this race. You saw contenders like Stenhouse late in the race start to make their moves. Even Chase Briscoe, even though he finished 20th, late in the race, he was 30th and then somehow was up near the top 10 was in the mix. I mean, there were so many contenders. Tyler Reddick, who at first didn't seem as though he would have the fastest car or a shot at winning, all of a sudden becomes a race-winning contender. I mean, there were so many drivers that had a shot at either A, having a shot at winning, or at the very least showing race-winning speed. This race was awesome. Awesome to watch. It had great strategy, great racing, comers and goers. Say what you want about the next-gen car, and the next-gen car does have its flaws. But one thing you can be certain is that it will produce a banger on the intermediates outside of Vegas this year. But other than that, it will most certainly produce a banger. And I think Charlotte could be now up with Kansas as the best track currently for the NASCAR Cup Series, because this is the second straight year in the road that the Charlotte Oval has produced straight bangers. And I don't know, it's up for grabs. What do you think is better, this year or last year's race? I mean, you could argue for this year's race because it was very fun, very entertaining to watch from start to finish. And you also had drivers, big time drivers, lose on their own or being caught up in wrecks. Kevin Harvick bounced off of Tyler Reddick's car coming off of turn number 4. He spun. Brad Keselowski, who finished pretty low, but because he was involved in an incident with Todd Gillen, he spun. Christopher Bell also spun after he had a real fast car spun by himself. I mean, there were a lot of contenders that had moments of like, oh wow, like they were in trouble, including Kyle Larson, who had a top 5 car all race long. For a moment in time, he had the hood up on the car to fix an adjustment, and then was involved in a crash late in the race involving him. I believe also Joey Logano and Ty Gibbs, I think they were also involved. This was during the part of the race where very late in the race, around 30 or so laps ago, it seemed as though that every time they would do a restart, not even a full lap, a caution would come out. So it was very entertaining, but also a lot of chaos was involved in this race. But in the end, it was still Ryan Blaney that was able to hold off all the carnage, hold off a hard-charging William Byron to go on to win the Coca-Cola 600 for his 8th career Cup Series win and his first win since Daytona in the fall of 2021, and becomes the 10th different winner of the 2023 season. Here's a look at the results. Ryan Blaney led 163 of the 400 laps. William Byron in second. Martin Truex Jr., Bubba Wallace in fourth. Another excellent run for the 23 team. I mean, that team the past few weeks have been on a roll. I believe he finished 3rd or 4th at Kansas, another top 5, then the following week at Darlington, 2nd in the All-Star race, and another 4th place finish here tonight. And when you really think about it, that 23 car had been all over the place. I mean, they were up front, then they fell off because, their car was just completely out of whack, similar to a bunch of other drivers because there was no practice or qualifying. A lot of drivers that started up front completely dropped like a rock and new contenders moved forward. So that team had a up and down day, had a lot of mistakes on pit road, but Bubba was able to rally out. Obviously with help from the restarts and the crashes, they were able to pull off a top 5 finish, as well as Tyler Reddick in that Tar Heel Jumpman car. A great run for 2311 Racing, coming home once again, 2nd week in a row in the top 5. Kyle Busch, solid 6th place finish after he spun also early in the race, or I should say during the later portions of the race. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., him and Kyle Busch had a fantastic battle. I wasn't able to get this, but those two went after each other in the closing laps of the race. Again, another statement implied into this race of just fantastic racing. And that's really all you can say about it. It was just fantastic racing all day long. Chris Buescher, solid 8th place finish for him. Austin Dillon, surprising quiet 9th place run. And Zane Smith, throughout all the carnage, comes home with a top 10 finish. Kevin Harvick rebounds from that spin from 11th. Alex Bowman's first race back in 12th. Ryan Preece in 13th. AJ Allmendinger, he spun also late in the race, rebounds to 14th. And then Justin Haley, JJ Yeley in 16th place. You want to know a race is crazy? Just look at where the 15 car finished in 16th place. Corey LaJoie, Harrison Burton, Brad Keselowski, and Chase Briscoe, the top 20. Joe Logano involved in that crash late in the race, 21st. Ross Chastain, very surprising to see Ross Chastain that far deep in the running order. And he really didn't have any issues, at the very least, nothing that was major. Just wasn't a factor all race long. Same thing with his teammate, Daniel Suarez, 22nd, 23rd. Very surprising off day for Trackhouse. Christopher Bell from that spin also led it early on, led 48 laps, was a strong contender in the early parts of the race, finished 24th following that spin. Eric Almirola, Ty Gibbs, Ty Dillon, Michael McDowell, BJ McLeod, and Kyle Larson, the top 30. And then Austin Cindric, Eric Jones, Todd Gillen, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Noah Gragson, and Jimmy Johnson. I want to say something about Legacy Motor Club. A case needs to be studied on the downfall of Legacy Motor Club between last year and this year. Last year, they seemed as though that they could be a potential playoff team. Now, nothing can go right with them. This race, there was a part in the race, early in the race, where both Gragson and Jones ran over a piece of debris on the same lap and both punctured the radiators. And not only that, but also Jimmy Johnson, who started dead last and actually moved his way up towards the field. It felt like he could have had maybe a top 15 car, spun by himself, and then later in the race, he then got into the wall with his driver, Noah Gragson, and ended up finishing in dead last. Jimmy's 3 races, Daytona, COTA, and here in Charlotte, all 3 DNFs. And COTA didn't even finish 1 lap, so not a good return for the for the 84 car. I was gonna say the 48, but yeah, not a good return for my guy, my first favorite driver, Jimmy Johnson. Not a good return for him. There was also a moment in the race, early in the race, before the first red flag, because the red flag did come out for rain, where this incident happened between Eric Almirola and Bubba Wallace, where Eric actually shoved Bubba, which for a guy like Eric, you don't normally see him get mad, so it's quite surprising to see him show that type of emotion. There was also another incident where Bubba apparently chopped down Eric's nose. But I don't know. For what we saw, for what I saw, I don't think justified Eric pushing Bubba, unless Bubba said something to him. But good restraint from Bubba, because, I mean, obviously, if someone pushes you, you're going to push him right back. So good restraint from Bubba. But yeah, that was an interesting moment. This race had everything. It had great racing, carnage, great strategy, tempers flaring. The only thing I didn't like, of course, was the Elliott Hamlin thing, and yeah, I'm not gonna go more in depth into it. I think I've already exasperated my points about it, but again, that type of stuff's just not tolerated. And if NASCAR, you got to be consistent. You suspended Bubba for the same thing last fall. I don't care if Chase Elliott is the most popular driver. You gotta suspend Chase this weekend at Gateway. Either Josh Berry or somebody else should be in the 9 car at Gateway next Sunday. No excuses for it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that Actions Detrimental podcast. But great run for Ryan Blaney for winning. That car was on it all day long. I mean, it was really the only one that didn't really fall off. There were a lot of drivers that had moments that were up towards the front, then they fell back, and then they came back late in the race. Blaney was one of the few that was there on it the entire day long. Great win for him. That 12 team has had a lot of bad luck to go their way since winning at Daytona the fall of 21, so it's nice to see them get a win, especially a crown jewel win like the Coke 600. Once again, another great run for William Byron, 2nd place. I'm telling you, that 24 car, I said this, that 24 car, potential championship 4 material. That team, him and Rudy Fugle, they're clicking on something. They're clicking on something. And yeah, overall, it's just a fun race. A lot of contenders. I should also mention that Brad Keselowski, he had a really fast car before that spin with him and Todd Gillen. Had a real fast car. Top 10, maybe even top 5 car early on. Showed a lot of great speed. And that was the beauty about this race. Again, I said this earlier, but the beauty about this race was you really didn't have an idea of who was going to be the guy. We saw this kind of at Kansas. You knew that Toyota was going to be a factor, but you really couldn't pinpoint which driver it was. Same thing with this race. So much parity across all different manufacturers. The Toyotas, you had Hamlin, Truex, Bubba, Reddick. For the Ford, you had Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski. And for the Chevy camp, you had Byron, Larson, and those guys. A lot of parity across the entire field, which was very great, very fun to see. It was a fun race. Fox doing their Fox things. They had like a portion during the race with Denny McBride, which no offense to him, but I don't care about him. When it comes to the race, you broadcast and focus on the race, not on some little side conversation, because there was great racing going on, 3-wide racing and all that, and they're focusing on something else. So, oh man, we got, how many races we got till NBC? We got like a month or so, so let's hang on. But yeah, what would I give this race? I mean, 9 out of 10. I mean, God, that Elliott Hamlin thing really like leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But I thought this was a fantastic race. So I give this a 9 out of 10. I loved it. Potential race of the year, maybe. Who knows? It could go up against Kansas for race of the year. Who knows? We'll see. But love Charlotte. Love the Coke 600. I feel like the next gen car has reignited the Coke 600 because let's be honest, the past few years it has been a dud. Or yeah, a dud. It has been not exciting, and I think the next gen car has brought some life back to the speedway, which is very great to see. But yeah, congratulations to Ryan Blaney, your winner at the Coke 600. What are your thoughts on this race, and what are your thoughts on Blaney and Elliott and Hamlin's incident? Let me know in the comment section down below. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK, and I'll see y'all in the next video.